Welcome, everybody. We're excited to talk with you for the next 45 minutes about landowner outreach project that a number of us are coordinating. We'll do a quick round of introductions, and then we're going to roll with a bit of a PowerPoint presentation, and then end with about 15 minutes of time that we'll have to answer your questions about hopefully how best we can assist you through this project, or let you know, answer any questions about any of the resources that we have. So we'll do a quick round of introductions of the project partners. We're going to tell you a little bit more about what we do later at the end of the PowerPoint. But I'm Jamie Fidel. I'm the Forest and Wildlife Program Director with Vermont Natural Resources Council. And with me are a couple other folks from VNRC. Alex, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Alex Canizzo. I'm Special Projects Coordinator for Vermont Natural Resources Council, and I'm providing some outreach assistance for this project.
Great, thanks. And Eric?
Hi, yeah, I'm Eric Grimes. I am the Molly Beatty intern, just here observing and hoping to help participate. Thanks.
Great, thanks. So then we have a number of partners with us today. Keith?
Hi all, I'm Keith Thompson. I'm the Private Lands Program Manager with Vermont Department of Forests, Parks and Recreation.
And Paul?
Paul Hamlin. I'm the Land and Habitat Program Manager for Fish and Wildlife Department. Administer all our habitat projects on private lands and public lands.
Great. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Sawsville. I'm with Vermont Coverts, Woodlands for Wildlife, the Executive Director there, and we work to educate landowners about sound forest management and wildlife stewardship. And hello to those of you that are cooperators.
Great. Kate?
Great. Hi, everybody. Kate Four. I'm the Executive Director of Vermont Woodlands Association. We are a statewide nonprofit organization that works to support healthy forests through good stewardship, working with landowners like you, as well as consulting foresters and other professionals. So thanks for being here.
Great, thanks. And Mike?
Greetings, folks. I'm Mike Snyder. I am an independent contractor, consultant in forests, forest conservation, recreation, communications, and I am a contractor with VNRC working on this project as a writer and technical assistance, outreach kind of coordinator. More from me in a little while. Great to have you all here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the landowners who've joined. So if any of you would like to, just take a short, half minute to introduce yourself, please feel free. It could include where you own land or forest land, and anything else you'd like to share with us.
I can jump in.
Great.
Hello, my name is Deirdre Rogers. I am a relatively new landowner in Mount Holly. I have about 134 plus minus acres, about 85 of which are forests. And I heard about you through Lisa at the Vermont Coverts. So hello, Lisa. And glad to be here.
Great, thank you.
And I'm Lori Lakin, and I'm in Westmore, Vermont, and I have 14 acres, probably 12 plus that are forested, and lots of gullies, and with all the storms that we've been having, I have a lot of down trees, and I'm really so glad that you've reached out because I need to do something, and I just am kind of grappling with how I'm going to approach this.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Meg Woolhouse. Thanks for having us here. We have some land, about 64 acres that we just bought in Fayston outside Waitsfield. And I'm just interested in being the best steward that I can of that area and eager to learn more. So.
Great. Thanks, Meg. James? Audio's not working. Feel free to put into the chat anything you'd like to share with us. Okay. All right, well, we're going to get started. We're also recording this because we'd like to share it with additional landowners who aren't able to be here today. But as you'll learn through this project, we are doing a whole bunch of outreach to forest landowners in Vermont. So I'm going to start sharing a PowerPoint presentation. Is this working for everybody? Great. Okay, so this project is calling it Engaging Landowners in Vermont to Maintain Healthy Forests. And there's a couple of main components of the project. At the highest level, it's a project or an initiative to engage private forest landowners in Vermont to help you all make informed stewardship decisions about your forests. And as part of this project, we're developing educational materials, which will include a forest landowner guide. This will be sort of an in-depth publication, provide an overview of the suite of management and conservation options that exist to promote healthy forests, sound stewardship and conservation options. And the guide will include an overview of the history of our forests, conservation strategies, the ethics of forest land ownership, planning for long-term stewardship ownership, which is sometimes called succession planning, developing a management plan, the utility of having a management or conservation plan, and then strategies on how to manage for wildlife, manage for carbon or climate resiliency, water quality, sustainable forest products, recreation and access, sensitive ecological features, and the list goes on. The guide will provide resources for forest stewardship, the types of organizations and professionals who are available to help you. Many other topics in the guide will be available, published this summer, and we intend to provide hard copies to you all and other landowners throughout the state. We're also developing what we're calling a landowner roadmap, which is really going to be a condensed version of the guide. It'll be an easier sort of pamphlet version, which will just give you a quick resource. And so you could look at it and decide, hey, what topics may be of interest for me to delve into the landowner guide and learn more. So those will both be printed and available this summer. We are also providing stewardship and conservation assistance to 100 landowners as part of this project through the funding that we have. And so this is sort of direct technical assistance, if you will, to help you in stewardship and sort of conservation options. Priority is being given to a subset of forest landowners or out-of-state buyers who have recently purchased forest land. This project is really funded as a way to try and help new forest landowners who may not be familiar with all the programs or strategies in the state. These landowners, have been identified through publicly available information that's in the property transfer tax database in the state. And then we use some additional criteria just to try and identify a subset of priority landowners to try and assist. This doesn't mean there aren't other landowners that we may, that hopefully we will be able to help, but this is just through this project who we're trying to identify. So hopefully most of you meet the criteria here. If not, we can talk to you about that. But essentially, we're looking for parcels that have conservation opportunity, so they're not currently like permanently conserved. We'll talk about what that means in a couple minutes. They haven't been, they're privately owned. They're not in government ownership or town forest ownership. Basically, we're looking for people who own it versus being transferred to another family member. They're not held in a trust. And then basically, there was a match that they basically, we know that these are valid parcels and that the forest cover, so the forested parcels, we're hoping to work with landowners of a certain size where it makes sense to be making some management or conservation decisions. And then also parcels that were identified in priority landscape. So the Agency of Natural Resources has basically a planning tool that they've used called Vermont Conservation Design. And it's a mapping tool to really prioritize where there are important forest areas, intact forest blocks, or habitat connectivity areas, or ecologically important areas in the state. And we're also looking for overlap with those areas. So if you've been invited to this webinar, if you've been invited by Lisa chances are that your property is an incredibly valuable part of Vermont's forested landscape, and we're really psyched to hopefully work with you. So this project is a partnership with the organizations that have already introduced themselves: Vermont Natural Resources Council, Department of Forests, Parks and Recreation, Fish and Wildlife Department, Vermont Coverts, Woodlands for Wildlife, Vermont Woodlands Association, also some key consultants, folks who are not here, but that are playing an important role, and then the consultants like Mike who are here. As I did want to mention, this project is funded through various grants. And the goal of the project is to provide you all with resources and knowledge to make informed decisions. There is no obligation to take any particular action as part of this project. We're not trying to sell certain programs. We're not trying to get you to enroll in our organizations. If throughout the project you decide that you like any of our organizations and a whole bunch of others that are in the state, that's great. All the decisions are up to you as part of this project. So we just want to really preface that we're not here trying to engage you to come up with X, Y, or Z result. We want to help you to understand what your ideas are for owning land, what you'd like to learn, and then how we can be a resource to connect you with the right people or opportunities. So the services that we can provide through this project are free stewardship consultation in person or online with Mike, and he's going to tell you more about that. And you can schedule that online. We have a scheduler for that. Mike can conduct a free site visit, as well as site visits from other resources like county foresters. We'll talk more about that. Or follow-up assistance from other.
Lori, you're on the way? Okay, 3.5 hours? Great.
Then we'll also be looking to
just finishing up. Okay, thanks. Bye.
And then if folks could please mute if you're not muted, thank you. We'll also be distributing the landowner guide, which I mentioned, and decision-making roadmap to 5,000 landowners in the state that we've identified through that criteria that I mentioned before. And then it will be available online for free as well. And then invitation to webinars and woods walks and other educational programs. And then we'll be maintaining a project website where there'll be additional resources. So Mike is your first point of contact for you as a resource. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. I'm going to spend a few minutes here just talking a little bit about you folks and the importance of your land and why we have engaged in this project, and kind of reset on the importance of Vermont's forest lands and the role of private forest land owners in providing those many benefits. So congratulations, first and foremost, especially to those who are relatively new at ownership or those who have had some time with it. You're joining a really important community, you know, holding on to a significant piece of our natural heritage, but also contributing to the real here and now, a living history shaped by generations before, and with some with hope and guidance going forward, perhaps paying it forward. We have this long historical and cultural legacy of people on the land, ecological functions, and community vitality. The reason this matters is that while Vermont is a very heavily forested state, you know, it is nearly 80%, it's mostly privately owned. Nearly 80% is owned by really families and individuals and other private ownerships compared to the federal, state, and local lands in public ownership. So just private landowners have this outsized role in providing public benefits from their lands in aggregate. And that is, it cannot be overstated, the importance of that private ownership. Next slide, Jamie, please. This, of course, we'd like to think is a great opportunity, and it comes with some level of responsibility, which is your choice to accept or not, or accept in various ways. But you have this unique chance to further enhance Vermont's ecological and cultural landscapes. This landscape kind of defines Vermont in many ways, and it looks and functions the way it does today in a relatively healthy state, largely because of long histories of private ownership and stewardship on the land. So your thoughtful stewardship not only benefits the ecological health of our forests, but also strengthens our communities and provides resilience, particularly in the face of demographic change, climate change, political change, etc. So we're hoping to encourage you to and to support you in embracing the opportunity to make a significant impact on our state's the state today and our state's future. So the idea is here's that your decisions matter on your land. There's a range of possibilities for your stewardship activity and the sort of way you approach it. But you have an opportunity to make a significant impact on our state's future. And the idea here is that your decisions about how you own and steward and care for your land, they do matter, and that you are part of one of the largest intact temperate forests in the world, possibly the largest intact temperate forest in the world. And so the other piece is to make sure we are all in this together. You're not alone. There are, again, many forest landowners, and we're all in this together. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of reset on the forests of Vermont. It is a heavily forested state. Out of 6 million acres, nearly 6 million acres of Vermont, nearly 4.5 million are forested, particularly in the Northeast, the South. But overall, a very heavily forested state, the fourth most forested state in the country. Next slide. We're all familiar with, this forested landscape. This happens to be my background shot from Mount Mansfield looking south, southwest, and showing, a very typical expanse of Vermont forest land. And I think in many ways we kind of imagine this, but it's important to zoom in and to realize that this broad landscape of intact, healthy forests functioning and providing so much is a sort of a combination of many smaller holdings and efforts. Next slide, please. So we drill in a little and we realize that forests exist at multiple scales: the landscape, regional and landscape level, big picture, the sort of forest level, and then the site level, and that all of these different scales of forests are knowable, and it's possible to enjoy them, and it's important to understand them as existing on these different scales. Next slide. Drilling in all the way to, say, a particular parcel of forest land on that landscape. And this is how Vermont is really made up of this mosaic of smaller private holdings all linked together and holding the whole landscape together. Next slide. Right down to your parcel marked by boundaries, perhaps, at the individual scale level. Next slide. Individual parcel, containing groups of trees and individual trees and natural communities that, again, make up that larger mosaic of a forested landscape with all these different components combining to form that great green mass that we know and love. Next slide. And indeed, that's kind of the pattern of Vermont's landscape and ownership. It's heavily forested, forest broken by agriculture and human settlements in this pattern across the landscape, all connecting people with the landscape. And this is where it's very important, where the people kind of come into this. This patchwork that leads to this grand mosaic is providing, of course, habitat and homes for an amazing array and diversity of organisms, wild and otherwise. Next slide, people. Next slide, please. Including the importance of people on the land and people connecting with the land as members of this forested community, not separate from it. Next slide, please. Just to reset, I'd like to think most Vermonters know these things, but remember back during the tropical storm Irene, following Vermont's wonderful community-based response to it, there was this notion of Vermont being, we're Vermont strong. And I love that. And ever since, I've thought about how it's equally powerful and important to see how so much of Vermont's strength is engendered by our forests. And that's why I like to think that Vermont is forest strong. The dominant land use covering 3/4 of the state, broadly speaking, in pretty good shape, largely intact, remarkably resilient. So, this is this array of things that they do for us, providing wildlife, biodiversity, and connectivity, clean water, water supply and flood resilience, clean air and pollution protection, carbon storage and sequestration. These all confer, in a way, landscape and community resilience, human health, quality of life, our cultural heritage. And that's quite a list right there of important functions and values. And it doesn't even yet mention that our forested landscape, made up by all of your individual holdings linked together, provide this scenic backdrop, and you can think of it as the natural infrastructure for our world-class tourism and outdoor recreation assets and pursuits, also that kind of define the state. And the nearly $2 billion in annual economic activity related to the growing, harvesting, and manufacturing of wood products that we use on a daily basis. Vermont looks and feels the way it does, heavily forested, largely in good shape, because, and it provides this massive array of benefits, again, because of you, the private forest landowners who steward the land. Next slide, please. So I think we'll just quickly run through kind of a status report of, well, how sustainable is this? We make a lot of the importance of Vermont's forest as kind of defining what Vermont is and what we love about it. Is it sustainable? We think of sustainability as requiring kind of a triple bottom line of sorts, that there's an ecologic, a cultural, and an economic component to sustainability. So let's look at those in turn. Next slide, please. The ecological status, frankly, so warning, I'm going to be brutally honest with you all here. The ecologic status of Vermont's forested landscape is pretty darn good. We have lots of forests and they're largely in good condition, but there are unsettling trends and patterns that include things like increasing occurrence and negative impacts from introduced plants, pests, and pathogens, outcompeting native plants, killing native trees, really interrupting normal process. We are seeing increased dieback and mortality in some tree species. Think of high elevation white birch, for example. Decreased growth in some tree species. We've seen this in sugar maples, our iconic species across the landscape. Increasing regeneration failures. That means new trees, baby trees, seedlings, and saplings not making it. This has been exacerbated by overbrowsing by deer and to some extent moose, and or by competition from those introduced plants. Climate change, alterations and disruptions to ecosystem pattern and process, things like the timing of flowering, timing of bud break, leaf out, disrupting the synchrony with insect populations and therefore disrupting the birds that rely on those insects, that rely on leaves opening at certain times of year, for example. So disrupting pattern and process. The radiating, degrading, and fragmenting effects of poorly implemented development of built infrastructure. And the big one here, a significant loss of forest land through conversion to other land cover and uses. This is the first time in over a century that Vermont has seen things going the other way. Whereas for a century, we were expanding, our forests were increasing in area, in size and scope, like they were proliferating. And now for the first time in over a century, we're documenting significant losses, thousands of acres a year converted from forest to non-forest. That is unsettling and worth noting and paying attention to. Next slide, please. The cultural status of Vermont's forests is equally important. It's kind of the culture of forest stewardship and an understanding, a connection to the land. And we've seen, broadly speaking, arguably an erosion of that local land ethic of a shared sense of stewardship responsibility and a connection to the land. We've seen an increased kind of gap in our awareness about our dependence on and consumption of forest products, especially wood. We use them a lot. We don't tend to consider how much and where they're coming from. Relatedly, there's an emerging tension over managing forests for those wood products versus leaving them alone. This has been set up as kind of this false choice versus supporting a blend of options that we can kind of have it all. We're also seeing demographic changes in ownership, say the aging of owners and lack of succession planning for the land beyond that ownership. By the way, nothing against being older. I'm aging, it seems, quickly, and I look forward to being even older. It's just a recognition that there's an impact on lands when people age out and move on. without a plan for how to care for the stewardship of their land continuing. We're seeing documented decreasing parcel size and a corresponding increasing number of parcels. And again, significant loss of forest land through that conversion to other uses. I put it on here, again, it's not a typo, to make the point that that's not only an ecological concern, it's a cultural concern, that plays such a big part in our state's identity and our vibrancy. Losing forest land affects the culture of Vermont's landscape. Next slide, please. And then the economic status is a really tricky one. The economic outlook is great if you want to sell your forest land for development. That's for sure. But it's not at all great if you want to buy, own, hold, steward, or manage forest lands. The challenges in doing so, the expenses in doing so are increasing. And that's kind of why we're here, is to help overcome these sorts of difficulties. We are experiencing a variety of historic crises in the regional forest economy, loss of mills and manufacturing facilities, loss of workforce, think loggers and mill workers, skyrocketing costs of doing business in forestry and wood manufacturing, fuel, energy, equipment, etc. And now adding on tariff and other trade policy uncertainty and what's been called chaos in the forest marketplace out there. Increased globalization. The pandemic showed how vulnerable we are in this highly globalized marketplace for wood products, high costs, low prices paid. And again, this is translating into a loss of forest land, which is also a serious economic threat, as this is one of our great competitive advantages, is this forested landscape. I think it's important to note that there is some good news on the economic side, that there's this early nascent movement towards paying landowners like yourselves for the ecological services that your lands already provide. That, carbon, monetizing forest carbon, for example, is a really exciting new idea. That's more than an idea now, and I would say it's about time. We could be finding ways to pay landowners for the clean water that flows from your forested lands. Those sorts of things are on the brighter side of the economic status. Next slide, please. And so we're back to you folks. Did we mention, I hope it's coming across, how important your land and your stewardship of your land are? I'd say that nothing less than the vitality and health of our land, waters, and our human communities stand to benefit from your thoughtful stewardship. It's not hard, it doesn't have to be, but it's also not automatic. And again, that's why we're here and we've created this program, is to provide a possibility for empowering landowners, for you to do what works for you, but to make sure that there are no barriers through lack of information or lack of support or lack of resources. We're here to help make those connections so that you can make your choices about stewarding your land. And fortunately, I've done a lot of work nationally, and we have a top shelf community of forest conservation practitioners and various helpers to assist you in this state, from ecologists, foresters, biologists, hydrologists, to planners and attorneys. There are folks who know their stuff, how it relates to forests, and how to help private landowners like yourselves in again, empowering the stewardship of your land in a way that works for you. Next slide, please. I'll pass this over to Jamie, who helped conceive of and manage a survey of landowners to kind of get at interests by folks like yourselves.
So thanks, Mike. So at the beginning of the PowerPoint, I mentioned that we had identified a subset of forest landowners in Vermont, those who were relatively new to owning a forest land parcel. We sent out a survey and got about 159 responses, and there's a lot of interesting survey results. We're going to be putting this on the project website. I just wanted to give you examples of the kinds of topics that ranked high as far as landowners being interested in these topics. This is not the exhaustive list, but I just pulled out those that at least 75% of folks said that they had a very high, significantly high interest in these topics. So you can just quickly read through them. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but it gives you an example of what's on new landowners' minds out there if they think about what are the kinds of resource issues they're interested in managing for, or who they're interested in working with. So it's a diverse list. I'm not going to read through it. If you're interested in the survey, we can certainly provide the link for you as a follow-up. What we do want to get to is that there's really diverse strategies to help you based on whatever your interests are, whether they sync with that list or you have other ideas. And so it's really up to you. It's how you want to tailor your management practices to align with your own values in owning forests, your own goals, your own vision, and the unique characteristics of your land. And there's numerous ways to do this, and there's not one set approach. And so if you were to take Mike up on the consultation that he's offering, whether that's in person or via Zoom or a phone call, he could walk you through the many different types of strategies that exist in the state and hear from you about what you may be interested in, whether that's I'm interested in trying to figure out how to sort of conserve my land for the long term and maybe work with a land trust to put an easement on your property, or what does that mean even to how do I plan for the future ownership of my land? I know that at some point, I need to figure out who's going to inherit my land or what the plan is going to be, or I'm interested in wildlife, really want to just manage for wildlife or recreation access, or I'm interested in doing sustainable forestry and collecting firewood from my property or having wood products. The list goes on and on. Climate resiliency, invasive species management. So we don't have time today to tell you about all the programs that exist in the state, from enrolling in the state's current use program to lower your property taxes in order to manage for forestry, to working with land trusts, to working with state agencies, federal agencies that have cost share programs or financial incentives for you to do water quality improvement or invasive management control. There are just a lot of resources and programs that are available, and there are a lot of professionals that can play a key role in that. And so really the key is to help you get started. If you're not quite sure where you want to go or who's available to help, would be to set up that initial sort of consultation that we're offering to talk with Mike. And then he can get you working with different landowner organizations or resources in the state. So Mike, if you just want to, since you're kind of the key consultant on this project, take just a minute to maybe provide a little bit more background about yourself.
Sure. The point being here that I guess is that I have a long and relatively broad background in forest conservation in a variety of ways in Vermont over nearly 40 years now. And so that list of strategies and the potential, the programs and the partners, I have experience in all of them and awareness of them, and am eager to play a role as the first point of contact with you folks. So I'm a forester, a writer. I've served as a county forester, providing this sorts of assistance to private landowners for nearly 14 years. I've taught forestry for a long time at the University of Vermont, and explored ways to deliver that kind of content in meaningful ways to help folks. I've written extensively, and again, it's mostly about practice. My career has included forest science, forest management, and forest policy. So I'm reasonably well versed in all kinds of subjects, and that I'd like to think is a good place to come from when I serve with you all at your request, as that first point of contact to kind of hear you out, understand what your interests are, hear more about your land. We do that through a Zoom consult first, as we've envisioned this, and as Jamie said, available to then follow up or even start with a site visit to, again, visit the land, see it through your eyes, hear what your interests are, or your concerns are, your questions, answer as many as I can, provide as much information and resources as possible, and likely be kind of the quarterback to kind of refer you to others with similar specialties or broad backgrounds or specific specialty areas to help you get what you need to further that stewardship mission on your lands. So enough about my background. The point would just be to say that I'm a kind of an enthusiast, a forest enthusiast with a lot of experience in Vermont and beyond, and I'm very eager to share and really assist you all. And the magic of connecting with people in their lands is something that motivates me. And I'd very much look forward to the chance to meet you all further. And with that idea of empowering you to do the best you can in the ways that work for you with this enormously special and important thing that you have ownership over. I think that's enough about my background. We also, this whole project is undergirded by this wonderful partnership of these important historic statewide entities that do this stuff all the time. So I'll let Jamie take it from there on introducing the partners list.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit more background about the other partners in this project, and then we're going to open it up to questions and answers. And so as I mentioned before, I work for VNRC. We're helping to sort of coordinate the project overall. We're a statewide environmental organization that does work through research and education collaboration, and we do work across a number of different natural resource sort of topics. So we'll be publishing the guide and offering that and overseeing the overall coordination of the project, the website that's available as a resource, working to hire the professionals like Mike to work with you, and offering outreach webinars that we'll be following up on as well when the guide is actually published. And we'll go into deeper sort of webinars on conservation strategies and topics. You can learn more about the project at the website at the bottom here. I would say maybe when we go into the Q&A, if you wouldn't mind providing both the link in the chat for both the project website and also how to schedule an appointment with Mike, that would be great. Keith is here. He's already introduced himself with the Forest Parks and Recreation statewide department. There's a lot of resources that FPR can provide to you. One of the key is that they house the county foresters that help to implement the current use program, but also county foresters can be a general resource to you as a forest landowner about understanding how to keep your forest healthy, understand the special places that are on your property, the different financial mechanisms for forest land ownership, how to enroll in current use, or whether your land is available to enroll, and different strategies for managing forest products, forest health, wildlife, preventing erosion, water quality management. And they're very familiar with the people and programs organizations in the state, and a really sound resource. As is the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department, who does their own technical assistance with wildlife biologists providing in-person habitat planning and management assistance. Paul's here, introduced himself. They also help coordinate with USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service staff who actually have cost share or financial incentives to help do wildlife habitat improvement programs. So can help meet with landowners to learn about wildlife and property goals and assess habitat conditions or habitat improvements, develop habitat plans, and help submit these applications for financial assistance. And you can just see at the bottom here some example practices that they're engaged in, from everything from supporting pollinators to managing for diverse habitats, wildlife foods that are important for species controlling invasives. Lisa's here with Vermont Coverts. Some of you are here as part of her cohort or know Lisa's work at Coverts, peer-to-peer community of landowners, professionals, landowners learning and supporting each other with an emphasis on wildlife habitat management. Coverts offers 3-day training courses that include classroom and field studies focused on a range of important topics for stewardship. In addition to stewardship walks and workshops on a number of important topics, access to online programming, and facilitating personal contacts among individual landowners, experts, and organizations in the conservation arena. And also Vermont Woodlands Association, another woodlands organization, statewide nonprofit, helping landowners to care for their woods, providing resources, guidance in a community of fellow woodland stewards. They offer year-round educational programming as well, including woodwalks, webinars, workshops, and courses. They do manage the tree farm certification, which is a certification that you can have on your land for responsible forest stewardship, connections to fellow woodland stewards through gatherings, workshops. So another great resource, and information provided at the bottom of the links for some of these organizations. So that was sort of a broad way of letting you know that there are the partners that are part of this project, and then a wealth of other folks working in the state, whether that's Audubon Vermont working on bird habitat improvements, to regional organizations, regional land trusts, ecologists, a lot of practicing professionals, attorneys that we work with who help you do successional planning. So the key point is there's a lot of resources available to you. So we want to stop there. And we do want to open this up for any questions that you may have. And again, we want to provide the links to you so that you can get started if you are interested in working through this project.
I'm eager to hear questions. I just wanted to note that I don't think I made it clear that on the consultations that we've already begun, I've had Zoom conversations, wonderful chats with a number of folks already. I'm thrilled to see that at least one of them has joined us here today. Just want you to know we're up and running and eager to keep it rolling. So hopefully there's questions in response to what you've heard here today, and thanks all again for joining.
Yeah, we saw your note. Thank you. So there's a couple questions in the chat here. Assume that our forest land is in current use and we have a consulting forester with a pretty holistic view of forest land management and broad skill set. So I think Lauren, are you questioning whether you already have that in place, or is there sort of a question around that? A lot of properties are enrolled in UVA. Keith, what is it about now? Maybe 60% of available forest land is enrolled or getting close to that, but there's quite a substantial amount of forest land that is not enrolled. And Keith, what would be your recommendation to?
70% of eligible land is enrolled right now. And I think what Lauren is asking is, she's connected with the forester, she's already enrolled, she's got resources, and that's awesome. I think what I would share is different folks have different perspectives, and your consulting forester costs money, and county foresters have limited capacity. Michael is available to ask a lot of different questions to, and will provide a unique perspective that can just really support your interactions with a county forester and with a consulting forester. And so there's a lot of different expertise that Michael and other folks can offer. And so engaging in this would help you jumpstart on that.
Thanks, Keith. And I also saw the continuing point question of what would this program add. So a couple things that I would say is you already have a management plan and you're working with a forester, which is great, a great start. The types of things that Mike could help with would be, are you interested potentially in permanently conserving your land? Because in current use, the land is conserved, but you can take the land out. There are other options for like working with a land trust to permanently conserve your land, which means that you would decide what part of your land would want to be conserved, what kind of uses you would want to maintain. There are certain tax benefits to putting your land in perpetual conservation, but there are important decisions to make and not to be done lightly. So Mike, if you're interested in that, I could point you to the people who do that kind of work. It's also important to think about maybe having a successional plan for who's going to own your forest land into the future. And so maybe your thought is, I'll just keep it enrolled in current use, but whoever inherits your land may not have the same idea. And so, you could work on, and we can provide resources to people that help landowners. And there's a great guide that Vermont Woodlands Association and Coverts just wrote on this whole topic. And so we could get you that resource if you're interested in understanding the process for, developing a long-term plan for your property. And then there could be other resource issues that are not being identified or addressed, particularly through your UVA plan, but other resources that Mike could help you with. Mike, any others you'd like to hit on?
Well, no, I think you've done a nice job there. And Keith's point that, there's a few here that are indicating, well, I'm involved in this already, I'm involved in that already, I've reached out to this group. That, as Keith's word, that's awesome. Good for you. You're already moving. This is not to be instead of any of that or to sort of counter it. It's really to support it and add to it with what we're doing here is my role is free of cost, no charge or obligation. And so it's another perspective. It can be supportive of your interests. Sometimes it might be hard to ask a question of that other program, or you might not feel this is an independent sort of take. And again, towards supporting, you've already demonstrated interest and motivation to move in a direction. This isn't to change that, it's to support it. And we encourage you, regardless of what you've already started on, reach out, and we'd be interested in enhancing that experience, helping you get the most out of that experience, and being available as a independent second sort of take on any of it. I hope that makes sense. It's great to see that folks are already moving.
And another example here is Johanna, who got in touch with the Family Forest Carbon Program recently, a question of how do we dovetail with them? Which I think, as Mike said, it would be, complementary. Like, so if you're interested in managing for carbon or understanding what the incentive-based opportunities are for managing for carbon, then, Mike can serve as a resource to explain, some of the programs that are available. Or if you're just interested generally in the topic, understanding that there's the Family Forest Carbon Program, and try and be a resource to understand who's out there doing that kind of work and how does it dovetail, like how would it jive with my UVA plan, and try and troubleshoot. County foresters can help with that too. Try and troubleshoot some issues that may come up to make sure that things are synced so that you're going about your management in a holistic way and not one that may cause you heartache, but versus trying to assist the ways that you can blend different program approaches together.
I have sort of a comment and a question, and I don't know how to raise my virtual hand in the Zoom, so I hope it's okay. I just
go for it.
So first, the comment. The county forester Tessa McGann came to visit with me. She scheduled a meeting, and I have to say it was an incredible experience. I walked around with her for a couple hours, and I learned so much from her that I never would have been able to learn, I think, just sort of poking around online. So that, and I haven't actually met the consulting forester yet, and our land's in current use as well. But walking around with her was hugely helpful, almost as like a preparation for meeting the consulting forester. So that's just sort of my plug for the maybe walking around with Mike Snyder or something like that, like the benefit of doing that. And then the question, just a little bit out there, is there's so many different forested plots of land. I mean, certainly around sort of where I am, and if I was infinitely wealthy, I would just buy them all, which is not going to happen. But is there any sort of state program where a state entity that can, like communities or something, that can buy the land, put them into conservation to sort of help protect the continuity of the forest land in the state?
I can jump on that. Yes, in a word, yes. Although not the sort of one-stop place where there's one entity that does this. There's a network, and it includes Keith's Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation that engages in land conservation projects that may put an easement on private land that stays in private land, but then is conserved in perpetuity, held by the department. They partner with all kinds of land trusts, from the Vermont Land Trust statewide to local and regional land trusts. and it's all premised on willing seller, willing buyer. This is not a taking, this is not pressure. It's when someone has interest. Then there are many professionals to help facilitate conversations and transactions in a way that works for all. Also accessing funding to do so, it can be very important. So there's this whole community of land protection specialists and professionals that work with landowners. And so that's one of the keys. Jamie was referencing it as one of the strategies, is that long-term protection through this program. I can help if that's of interest, and we want to make people aware of that, how that works and what's possible, and then connecting you with that network of professionals who can then take it to the next step of, is there a deal to be had here where there's someone does want to see their land permanently protected? What are the ways to get funding for it, to put the appropriate deal together? And that's a big piece of what we're trying to do here, is inform folks about those possibilities, Deirdre, and then help them connect with the people who can make it happen. Keith, would you, for example, add anything to that or correct anything there?
No, I think that's spot on.
There are also some great examples of landowners who have coordinated together to do conservation projects or to pool resources for management and stewardship across, like, buying certain equipment or paying for certain professional services, as a cost. There's like the Orange County Headwaters Project, the Chittenden County Uplands Project, and there's just a number of these models out there of where landowners are working together and doing some of the conservation projects, or as permanent conservation, or just helping to work together on stewardship. So we can help also, provide examples of those if you're interested to see how they've worked. Okay, another question from Johanna just came in. I'm interested in creating some recreational trails and also in protecting water and stopping erosion up in the woods, mostly where logging has happened. Are these things you can help with? The answer is yes, Mike.
Yes, in a word, yes, exactly. And this, in the handful of consults I've already done by Zoom, I would say pretty much every one of them has included some version of this question, and I'm eager to follow up with those folks about how to do so, accessing, others who can help, so there's the kind of planning for how to correct it, then how to go about doing that, lots of help here and integrated ways of doing so.
Can I jump in and just ask a quick question? Thanks very much for the offer, and we'll definitely be in touch to schedule a Zoom with Michael. So thanks very much for this. My wife and I did the Coverts course in April with Lisa, so we already got a full overview of a lot of the things that are happening. But I'm just curious, and if you don't want to handle this today, we can certainly do it in the conversation. But one of the issues that came up quite often, actually, for a number of the landowners who were on the Coverts course with us, was a little bit of a tension between managing land for wildlife habitat and managing it for use value appraisal, in that some of the landowners felt pressure to keep the land in such a way that would be good for forestry use at some point in the future, versus the mantra in Coverts, which is animals like it messy, and the messier your forest, the better it is actually oftentimes for habitat. So I'm just sort of curious. I mean, it's rare that we have so many experts in one place like this. If you, Michael, or Jamie, or others have some thoughts on that, have you seen this tension in terms of plans that for use value appraisal have to be really focused on the forestry aspect, when maybe the priority of the landowner is to manage for wildlife habitat? Thanks.
Keith, I'm sort of waiting to let you take a shot at that.
Sure. I think there's a couple of parts to this, James, and you're hitting on such an important question that landowners wrestle with. There are multiple things I want from my land. How do I thread the needle and get a win-win-win situation out of it? And there is this logic and something of a perception that managing for taking care of wildlife means letting it do its thing and be natural. And that's sometimes true. There's a perception that harvesting trees is gonna harm things. Cutting a tree is going to harm that tree, absolutely. And yet there are a lot of opportunities, depending on the conditions of the forest, to do all of it at the same time. And in some cases, and Paul and Vermont Fish and Wildlife can speak to this, it may actually be really beneficial to actively manage for wildlife. And you can do that while generating revenue and improving wildlife habitat and making money and improving forest health. It's not to say that cutting trees is always without risk. It absolutely can carry risk, both for the forest and for the roads and trails. You're bringing heavy equipment out there, but they aren't inherently incompatible. And in use value appraisal, there is a lot of flexibility in how folks approach things. Yes, most properties do need to be managed for saw timber, but given where our forests are at today, most forests can really be managed well for saw timber while also really leading with the restoration goals, with the wildlife goals, with species diversity goals, the things that we need from our forests and for our forests. And we can do them in some cases. We can accelerate the development of those values with some active management, while making a profit for the landowner, as opposed to having a cost. That's not to say it's going to fit every site or every landowner, but can it be done? Absolutely. And it's just getting in the woods with Michael, getting in the woods with the county forester and others, and figuring out, what are my options here? And the right thing on your property, James, is not going to be the right thing for my property. And that's why having those conversations and kind of sussing out what is suitable for the site and what advances your goals individually and where the win-win-win will be for them.
And I'd like to just add that we've talked about this a lot as a network of, project partners here, recognizing that, landowners have different philosophies or different questions like this based on, information or different management goals. And our philosophy with this project is there's a suite of different approaches landowners may want to take, from passive management to leaving forest alone or having them manage as wildlands to active management. And we're here to try and help you understand the benefits that could come with, either of those options, the types of programs that could support them. If there are points of conflict, how you could think about managing them, but really to steer you in different directions. So if you're in current use, then there's going to be a host of questions there. And there's aspects of the current use program that are directly about, actually conserving and not managing, certain types of significant ecological features. So there's options to learn about that. To if I'm not enrolled in current use and I want to manage for wildlands, maybe you'd be interested in working with the Northeast Wilderness Trust, who actually helps landowners conserve their land for wildland values, if that's kind of where you're coming from. To working with an organization, like Lisa's or others who are directly aligned with sort of, wildlife focused management, Vermont Woodlands, Audubon, a whole list of, so that's just an example there that we're not trying to steer you in one direction over another, but understand the different opportunities. So we do want to respect people's time. We know we've gone over. Let me just see if there's any other questions here. How will changes in Act 250 impact forest land development? The quick answer is that yes, there are changes to Act 250 happening now. There was major land use reform last year that the legislature passed, and a number of those programs are going through an implementation phase now. So There are certain areas that are actually going to be relaxed from Act 250 jurisdiction where we want to have more dense housing. There are certain areas, more rural areas, that may be subject to things like a road rule. So if you're developing a very long road now, a new road for development that's over 800 feet, you may trigger Act 250. And then there are certain significant critical natural resource areas right now that there's a determination happening as to how should any of those, are any of those areas appropriate to have a heightened level of review through Act 250, but that hasn't been complete yet. So it's a really good question. It's in process, and we can certainly help you to understand where the process is at, what it may mean for you through the project. So does anybody else have any other questions that we could answer now? Are there any of the project partners that would like to add anything, or any of you who maybe haven't had a chance to weigh in on anything? So I guess in closing, this is just the beginning of a conversation that we're hoping to have with you. We would really encourage you to, take advantage of a walk with Mike or a meeting with Mike, start a conversation with him, learn about the possibilities. Through the project funding as part of this project, Mike can be available to work with you for at least another year, if not longer, to help you kind of work through some management decisions. There are other partners, potentially that he can put you in touch with that are available to help. We can continue to be a resource for you. And we also have a place on the website that we provided the link up above for the project, where if you know of other landowners who may be interested in seeing if they're a good fit for this project, we have a Google form, very simple form that they could fill out. And then we can identify whether we have the resources through this project to help them. So if you have adjoining landowners or friends that you think could benefit from this project, please go to the project website, the link provided here, or follow up with us, or Alex or Mike, and just ask for that Google form, and we'll provide it to you. So hopefully you all have found this helpful. We really do appreciate you all showing up today and taking an hour to learn from us and to talk with us. And we're super interested in hopefully helping you. So thank you again for being here. And please do follow up.